He's the former president and publisher of the Sun Herald, and now he's on the radio. Welcome to Coast View with Ricky Matthews on SuperTalk Mississippi Gulf Coast 103.1.
I hope you're having a great day. Welcome to Coast View, the show that continues to celebrate the men and women who are making coastal Mississippi a better place to live, work, and play. And man, we have had a string of just extraordinary leaders who have done amazing work, whether they be from the private sector, the public sector, or certainly the nonprofit sector. I mean, the nonprofit community in coastal Mississippi is just doing such incredible work, and we've never needed them more. So if you have an organization that you personally are thinking about, find out how you can volunteer or contribute. There's so many gaps to be filled, and we can never have enough people who are interested in helping in the nonprofit sector of coastal Mississippi. So now we're going to have a wonderful conversation with my friend John Harrison. I enjoy talking to John. He's the CEO of Hancock Whitney. He's a very close friend. He's someone I've fought so many community battles with over the many years. He's just a smart guy, so it's always good to have John on so we can just talk about the world and what's happening. So today we're gonna get an update about the bank. We're gonna talk a little bit about the pandemic specifically, and then we're gonna talk about economics and what are the latest metrics telling him about coastal Mississippi. There's a lot to talk about. Anyway, John, how are you and your family doing?
Doing terrific, Ricky. It's good to see your voice and see you online. And before I forget, Kyle makes all this magic happen behind the scenes on the show. So, Kyle, just want to say hello to you too.
Yeah. Say hello, Kyle.
Thank you. Hello.
Kyle is you're right. He makes the magic happen. He's been the best producer. A guy like me. I'm not a radio guy. I'm just coming on having conversations with people that I know. And I'm passionate about the community, but he helps keep the show running, and he's really, as I've said before, a jack of all trades. And you're able to control me, aren't you, buddy?
For the most part.
More than anybody else I've ever seen control me.
He's been a great partner. I really appreciate you pointing that out, because what people don't see is before the show we always have this opportunity to chat with Kyle. And he's just a terrific partner. I've really loved having him on. Again, since January the 6th, we missed one show, and that was the telethon or the radiothon last week, one day. We've done over 160 of these conversations, John. Just think about the accumulation of knowledge that Kyle and I are getting. It's been terrific.
It's never happened on the coast before. I mean, this is new, so it's been good. It's valuable. I hope people will tune in and listen.
Yeah, the numbers have been terrific, and we've had some really cool people on lately, and you can watch the video views explode and really see that people are paying attention, and it's great to be able to sort of give people a deeper look into the people who have public faces, but there's always a bigger story to tell behind that public face, and I look forward to doing that. Hey, so look, what's your global view of things today as it relates to the pandemic?
Well, global, you said global as it relates to pandemic. I think that's the perfect way to say it. Right now, by a mile, the biggest impact on global economics and domestic economics is the virus itself. So we're sort of back to biology. Usually it's the weather, and any military issues that may be happening globally. But right now, it's the virus. And so, we can look at it as with all topics, there's good news and bad news. The bad news is there has been a very high surge of infection rates, and I think you've had speakers on your show talk about why that's the case. It's plateauing in our neck of the woods, so to speak, and I expect here in a week or two we'll be talking about the decrease of infections, decrease of hospitalizations, et cetera. However, part of that rise happened because of all the activity on the coast and the fact that we've had some really beneficial tourism for the first time since the outbreak occurred. And that virus is now beginning to expand. We're seeing positivity percentage increases in the Rust Belt and in the Midwest, where it's been in the Sun Belt here the last month or so. So I think what'll happen, it's just going to move. So it's like mixing a shake. You put in some more chocolate syrup or you put in some strawberries and it mixes up a little bit. And then you put the next ingredient in. It's the same thing. It's just popping up all throughout the domestic U.S. And that's going to continue to happen until we reach herd immunity.
Mm-hmm. And herd immunity, as Governor Reeves pointed out, those are some big numbers that we would have to engage. And let's hope, man, we get a vaccine or some really effective treatment capability
Well, it's
that
coming.
we don't. Yeah,
I
yeah,
believe it's coming. In fact, there's three real promising vaccination results so far that are already out of phase one. Two of those have begun phase two. That's Moderna and Pfizer. AstraZeneca is right behind them. And so, phase one basically shows the two big things, and they're really important. Number one is the antibody creation from the vaccines were at or better than the antibody creation from getting the virus organically. That's an enormous finding. Secondly, the virus is safe. The immunization's safe. And so if you get strong antibody production and you get safety, i.e. no unintended consequences, then you got a winner. And so we've got two of those right now, probably going to have three. We're expecting to have results from phase two in late October or November. That feels like a long way out, but it's not. And then probably by January, February, the hope is that we'll see around 300 million dosages available, which means 150 million people, because there's two dosages per person, right? So 150 million Americans ought to be treated with immunization in the first quarter of this year. And that would obviously go to where the most need is, healthcare workers, et cetera, right? And then based on those results, there are some pretty reputable people in the pharma industry that suggest that we should have enough vaccinations for all Americans by the middle of the year next year. Keep in mind, a successful vaccine, by definition, means at least 55% effective, right? So if you take the 55%, if every man, woman, and child in America the vaccination, and some knuckleheads will refuse to take it, but we'll get to most people, right? We'll get the vaccination out there. That's 55% plus the antibody creation from just people that got infected, and you get over that really important number of 70% for herd immunity. And at that point in time, we just coexist with the virus, and it'll be like another version of the flu. So, so that's really promising. Now, it's going to be rocky getting there, Ricky. It's not going to be something smooth. It's an election year, so all good and bad news is grossly exaggerated, right? But that's really dependable, good news that I think we as Americans can feel confident about, because these are organizations that are on domestic soil creating the vaccine. And there's a very good likelihood that America will get vaccinated early in the game, because these are companies that are here.
So Ashley Edwards and I had a terrific conversation in the last couple of days about the amount of misinformation that's out there. And one of the things I keep trying to just focus on is that all the experts agree, at least 99% of them agree, that the tools we have at our disposal currently are face masks, washing our hands, not touching our face, protecting the vulnerable, social distancing. That's been the basic elements from the very beginning. And if everyone would practice those things and religiously practice those things, which is what's happening now, by the way, the numbers will continue to go down. That's kind of the way it works, isn't it, John?
It is. I think that the three greatest weapons we have right now are common sense, patience, because it's easy to be a little grumpy right now with all the disruption we have, and third, just love for your community and your family and your neighbors. And so if you take care of yourself and your community by masking, by being patient. Nobody likes wearing a mask, but having studied the data, I had a wonderful opportunity to spend 2 hours with Dr. Deborah Birx. Most people think of her as the scarf lady. She's really the foremost expert we have in the country for pandemic and virology. And she sort of painfully went through detail of why masking works. It's this whole notion that that's a big conspiracy theory driven phase. It's just not true. It's real. So if everybody masked, if you're outside your home, this would probably all be over with in a month. But it's just tough to do that, with 100% dependency.
It is. I hope that we can, I think, again, what's happening is that people are learning about someone who died that they may have known, or someone who they know. Like, I think when the legislature dropped their guard for that period of time, and last count I heard, over 40 legislators had it, the speaker and, of course, the lieutenant governor. and Manley Barton, who's home and doing better, thank God. That gets people's attention. And, unfortunately, it's had to hit home with some people before they would really say, okay, I'm going to sign up and do what I have to do to protect my family, because that's really what it's about, isn't it?
It is, and it's tough because, we're people. We communicate, right? And when you communicate, if it's a loud environment or it's a full environment, you kind of lean in. And when you lean in to communicate and you don't have a mask on, that's sort of how it's transmitted. And so it's unfortunate. But here's some good news, and this is good news. The last time we had a really high infection rate starting out, Ricky, the government, because of a lot of unknowns, kind of shut the economy down. They did shut it down.
Yeah.
And we're going to pay for a decade for that decision. It was the only decision they had at the time, but as we understand the virus and treatment protocol better, we've come to understand if we can keep people from leaning in and whispering, or leaning in and having to shout at their neighbor because of hearing over music or whatever, we can really control it. That unfortunately hits some sectors of our industry harder than others.
What we're going to do, let's come back after the break, and I want to really start to zero in on the economic situation.
Sure.
So this is John Harrison, CEO of Hancock Whitney, and we'll be back right after this break.
Listen live or on demand and watch episodes of Coast View on your laptop, desktop, or on your phone or tablet by going to supertalkmsgulfcoast.com.
The Dean's List with Janice Dean.
A compassionate young man who became a dinner companion for a stranger makes today's Dean's List. Lisa Mealander and her family had been eating at the Eaton Park in Belle Vernon, Pennsylvania, when she noticed how her server was interacting with a senior patron. The server, Dylan Teetle, had dropped to one knee so he could give his full attention to the gentleman. Lisa wrote on Facebook, "The man apologized for not hearing well, and he talked about how he lost his hearing during the war. He was 91 years old with many stories to tell, and Dylan patiently listened, giving him his full attention. He also helped the man figure out a meal from the menu before putting the order into the kitchen." Lisa tried to flag Dylan down so she could offer to pay for the man's meal. Dylan said someone else had already taken care of the check. Before leaving her table, Lisa snapped pictures of Dylan chatting with the senior and published them to Facebook, where they have been since shared thousands of times. Thank you, Dylan, for your kindness, and Lisa for sharing this story with all of us. Janice Dean, Fox News.
Thousands of Bulldog fans have subscribed to the Thunder and Lightning podcast. Have you? On each episode, Brian Haydad and Joel Coleman give you an inside look at your Mississippi State Bulldogs. The Thunder and Lightning podcast is free and available on demand at supertalk.fm and on your smartphone. Just search for Thunder and Lightning on iTunes, Google Play, or anywhere you listen to podcasts. Thunder and Lightning from SuperTalk, Mississippi, covering the Bulldogs like no one else. Staying informed is a full-time job, even more so during an election year. That's why SuperTalk is here. With Fox News, News Mississippi, and the Super Talkers, you'll go inside the campaigns, and we'll separate what's real from what's not to bring you the latest information that matters. From now until you go into the voting booth on November 3rd, your election headquarters is Super Talk, Mississippi. Available on the Super Talk app and at supertalk.fm. From the Gallo Radio Show archives.
In the house, Mike Hurst.
When I started at the end of 2017, sadly, our office had gotten so low during the last administration. I think in FY16, we prosecuted 11 illegal immigration cases, 11, which is embarrassing. First year I was there, we had jumped almost 700% to 77 prosecutions. And Paul, that number I think is going to increase very much more this year. We are continuing to see illegal immigration impact crime around the state. I'll give you a perfect example. About a month ago, we prosecuted an illegal alien who had brought 9 kilos of heroin and 1 kilo of fentanyl through our state. Now, to give your listeners an idea of what 2.2 pounds of fentanyl will do, that will wipe out 1 million people, Paul. That'll wipe out a third of our state.
This has been another Gallo Radio Show audio archive. Talking to the people that help make the coast such a unique place to live. This is Coast View with Ricky Matthews on Super Talk Mississippi Gulf Coast 103.1.
Welcome back to Coast View. We have John Hairston, who is the CEO of Hancock Whitney. We're going to talk in this segment about sort of the economic situation around the world, United States, Mississippi, and the coast. But before we do that, John, remind people this wonderful local bank called Hancock Bank has continued to grow and has a pretty significant footprint today as it relates to Hancock Whitney. Remind us what that footprint is.
Sure, and thanks for the free commercial. Well, when I joined the company 26 years ago, we had just crossed $1 billion in assets. We were only in just coastal Mississippi, 4 counties, in fact, and we're celebrating having just opened our 40th branch. So that was $1 billion. We grew about $2 billion or so last quarter. So we're now about 32 billion. So we're literally 32 times larger than when I first kind of came home to Gulfport and went to work for the bank. And so it's been a quite a ride. That comes with growing pains as we've expanded. A lot of that was organic, but a lot of it was acquisition. And now the company operates from Texas to Florida. So we call ourselves a Gulf South Bank. We do have a presence in Nashville. We just opened an office in Jackson, which is our first foray into Mississippi's capital city. Last year we added Dallas. So it's been a growth story. So, the pandemic economy, invokes playbooks that people like, George Slogel ran, back in the 80s when the last oil and gas collapse happened and we had a recession. Leo Seal ran it in the 60s. His father, Leo Seal Sr., ran that playbook in the Depression. So what we're doing now is, while the company's a lot larger, we're running playbooks that have been timelessly proven to be the smart ones. So that resulted in, when the first cracks began to show in the economy, we built a massive reserve. We don't know what loans are going to have problems, but this is more unpredictable than any economy we've ever been through back to the early or the late 1800s. So we opted to build an enormous reserve, very, very Leo-esque a move. It was fact driven, but we felt like it was prudent based on what the economic indicators look like. And then last quarter opted to de-risk our loan portfolio by selling pretty much almost all of our larger energy loans. Energy is a good business to be in. I mean, the Gulf of Mexico is important. Ricky, you and I spent our childhood in the Gulf of Mexico, so it's important to us. But the world's changing in terms of fossil fuel adoption, and the likelihood that all these artificial production cuts are going at some point in time. OPEC and Russia may have another spat like that happened back in February. And we felt like it was better for our investors and depositors to take that hit now and exit the predominant portion of that business, which we did. Now, appreciate the clients and hated to part ways, but at the end of the day, we felt like it was a prudent thing to do. So that was a tough pill to swallow, but it puts us into a position that's completely even with our peers, and we're not carrying a whole bunch of energy-related problems anymore. So
yeah, when it's high, it's high. When it's low, it's low. And it's been hard to watch the energy sector over say, the last 2 years, especially.
Yeah.
So
it has been. It has been. It's been a tough industry for investors, but, it's still necessary. And we can get excited about the latest Tesla product, but at the end of the day, gas stations are still going to be on every major intersection in America for a long, long time. But it could be a rocky ride for the next couple of years. And we felt our first duty to our depositors. And if there's anything in the portfolio that's going to keep me up at night, the right answer is to decrease it and do so dramatically. And that's why we did what we did.
Yeah, I know you got to make tough decisions along the way, but I now that is behind you, being on par with your competitors in this pandemic moment, so you can more compare overall performance is a better place to be. I see that clearly.
It is.
Good strategic move on your part.
A smart guy told me one time that if you can write a check to solve it, it's not a problem, it's an expense. And I know that's an oversimplified version.
Yeah.
But it was a tough loss on a sale to digest. But at the end of the day, what may happen at 2:00 Central Time in the morning overseas is not as important to us as it was, a month ago.
In the
so,
short time
that's
we
the
have
reason.
left, let's do this.
Yeah.
Give me a summary of where you see the economics these days.
Well, it's a number of different answers depending on where you're talking about. I think economically, the point I mentioned before the break, I think our government leaders have realized that being more narrow and thoughtful about where we sort of stomp the brakes in terms of where people interact is going to be the theme of the day. So versus shut everything down, everybody go home. We've already tried that, killed the economy. Infection rates are right back where they were before. It didn't work, right? People are going to do what people do. And so it's more a matter of controlling those venues where you have the most likely spread. And we we've had, I think, only one documented case of someone that we believe might have caught the virus inside the bank, and we've never closed. Our branches have had open lobbies since Memorial Day, and their branches never closed, not one day. So as a result, we've had all the exposure, but with masking, with distancing, with good hand sanitizing technique, you can avoid that infection. And so as a result, we've had very, very good success. Well, I think all businesses have figured out those same lessons. And so when you get into large sport venues, look, man, I'm a football guy, and I'm worried we might not be able to go see all the games I'd like to go see this fall. But that may be our reality. It means that our clients and our friends that operate places where you may go enjoy a cool libation in the evening we may not have them available, at least as normal, for a while, because with music, you lean in. If you're drinking, you have no mask. And so I'm hoping that what Congress will do, Ricky, is further stimulus programs should be directed toward those businesses that are taking the hit for us to make sure we protect the community and the economy. And so rather than scattering a lot of money about, what I think Congress may very well do is try to direct it to those places that are taking maybe more than their fair share of the hit. So sporting venues, bars, concerts, museums, attractions, things like that. They're taking the hit for us, and I think they deserve our general assistance.
So let's bring that home. What are you seeing locally? Gaming, hospitality, all of that.
Well, it's strangely, it's a brighter picture. I know you've got Linda Hornsby, I think, coming on your show Friday. Linda is terrific, and we're blessed to have an association, her association statewide. But she lives here on the coast. And so while she knows an awful lot about the hotel and lodging and accommodations business statewide, she's right here rubbing elbows with the whole community on the coast. So she's a treasure of wisdom, not just right now, but kind of watching trends over time. And I spoke with Lynn just a few days ago to try to understand something that was odd to me. And that was, when I look at revenue per available room and occupancy, the coastal hotels were outperforming the U.S. They were outperforming almost everybody in the Gulf South. The exception were some of the beach communities in Florida. And that's real. And so as she was walking me through those numbers and she shared her data, it was powerful how well our hotels have done since opening began. Now, one of the metrics was how they compared to last year, same time. And that was just dramatically close to last year. She reminded me what we were doing a year ago. We were dealing with algae.
Right.
So our tourism industry, which means gaming, F&B, hotel, motel, attractions, they already took a hit last year because of the opening of the spillway. So relative to last year, it's not as much damage, but relative to 18, it's still a tough pill to swallow. But we're still outperforming almost everybody else in the U.S. That's encouraging because what it means is the drive-in destination is alive and it can thrive. And so if we invest properly and don't waste resources available to us and where we invest money in the Gulf, we could see a thriving tourism economy still on the coast. I think you maybe have Milton coming in maybe next week to speak on that same subject. So I think the future's bright for our coastal economy. Our defense industries are doing very, very well. The places that we're missing are the same places we've been talking about for years, which are those middle to upper middle income positions in technology, in manufacturing, in goods production that we just don't have our fair share of. And so while we have a great tourism industry and defense industry, we have some big banks and companies that are located here We need more sustainable jobs, and I really wish that we would invest available dollars into doing those instead of doing ribbon cutting on things that don't necessarily create job opportunities.
I see, we don't have time. We're about out of time now, but the BP money and the strategic opportunity it has to align the kind of jobs that we want to see in that creative class, so to speak, and to begin to make adjustments. And, people like to live, work, and play in the same area, so mixed use and all these kinds of things. There's some real opportunities. The Gulf Coast Business Council is really focused on that, as you know, and hopefully we can stay focused on that. John, we're out of time. Yeah, you can final thought.
I was just going to say, last time we talked about the flag being a difficult task to get past with economic development. Who would have thought this fast that would be remedied? But kudos to the legislature and the leadership and the governor for in a very difficult and emotional topic, stepping forward and making something happen that Mississippi can be proud of as we're trying to recruit employers to our state.
Pretty amazing we did it in the midst of all of this. I mean, Republicans and Democrats coming together to do what's right for this state, and now we've got that oppressive and divisive thing behind us. Anyway, John, thank you so much. We look forward to talking to you again soon.
Yeah, take care. Yeah, be healthy and safe. See you later, Kyle.
We have Mac McDonald from the Coast Coliseum coming up next.
Subscribe for free to the Coast View podcast on iTunes, Google Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Thousands of Bulldog fans have subscribed to the Thunder and Lightning podcast. Have you? On each episode, Brian Haydad and Joel Coleman give you an inside look at your Mississippi State Bulldogs. The Thunder and Lightning podcast is free and available on demand at supertalk.fm and on your smartphone. Just search for Thunder and Lightning on iTunes, Google Play, or anywhere you listen to podcasts. Thunder and Lightning from SuperTalk, Mississippi, covering the Bulldogs like no one else. Thousands of Bulldog fans have subscribed to the Thunder and Lightning podcast. Have you? On each episode, Brian Haydad and Joel Coleman give you an inside look at your Mississippi State Bulldogs. The Thunder and Lightning podcast is free and available on demand at supertalk.fm and on your smartphone. Just search for Thunder and Lightning on iTunes, Google Play, or anywhere you listen to podcasts. Thunder and Lightning from SuperTalk, Mississippi, covering the Bulldogs like no one else.
This is House Call for Health. There may be no greater medical mystery and no greater tragedy than sudden infant death syndrome. It used to be known as crib death. For no apparent reason, a presumably healthy sleeping baby dies. Medical experts don't have clear-cut answers to what causes sudden infant death, or SIDS, but now they have two risk factors: smoking and drinking during pregnancy beyond the first 3 months. A new study finds that babies whose mothers drank alcohol and smoked tobacco after the first trimester are at far greater risk of SIDS, 12 times greater. Previous studies showed a risk of smoking and drinking individually. This study says doing both drastically increases the danger. The research is sponsored by the National Institutes of Health, which is calling for greater publicity about the danger and improved screening at the very beginning of a pregnancy. For more health news, go to foxnewshealth.com. House Call for Health. I'm Lisa Brady, Fox News.
We know that we're asking Americans to do a lot right now. So we're asking everyone to be selfless for others so that we can protect those who are most susceptible to this virus.
A question I often get asked is, why should young people care about the spread of coronavirus? Well, we know that people with underlying medical conditions over the age of 60 are at highest risk, but they've got to get it from somebody.
Social distancing is really physical separation of people.
It's what we refer to when we ask people to stay at least 6 feet apart.
Not going to bars, not going to restaurants, not going to theaters where there are a lot of people. It all just means physical separation so that you have a space between you and others who might actually be infected or infect you.
We all have a role to play in preventing person-to-person spread of this disease, which can be deadly for vulnerable groups. For more information on how you can social distance, please go to coronavirus.gov.
SuperTalk. Nobody keeps Mississippi informed like we do. with 12 stations covering all 82 counties. If it happens in your state, we're on top of it. The news, the weather, the sports, and the talk that's important to you. The issues that matter to you, your family, and your bank account. It's all right here. And when you're away from home, depend on the SuperTalk app and supertalk.fm to stay in the know. We're proud to serve our fellow Mississippians. SuperTalk, Mississippi.
We know that we're asking Americans to do a lot right now. So we're asking everyone to be selfless for others so that we can protect those who are most susceptible to this virus.
A question I often get asked is, why should young people care about the spread of coronavirus? Well, we know that people with underlying medical conditions over the age of 60 are at highest risk, but they've got to get it from somebody.
Social distancing is really physical separation of people.
It's what we refer to when we ask people to stay at least 6 feet apart.
Not going to bars, not going to restaurants, not going to theaters where there are a lot of people. It all just means physical separation so that you have a space between you and others who might actually be infected or infect you.
We all have a role to play in preventing person-to-person spread of this disease, which can be deadly for vulnerable groups. For more information on how you can social distance, please go to coronavirus.gov.
Feeling down? Here's your prescription for a daily dose of good news and positive vibes. Good Things with Rebecca Turner. Every afternoon, Rebecca highlights all the good things happening right here in the state you call home. Daily exposure to Good Things with Rebecca Turner may cause smiling, feelings of positivity, happiness, and even laughter. When you experience these symptoms, tell your friends to listen. Okay. Weekdays starting at 2 p.m. here on SuperTalk Mississippi and now on Amazon Alexa devices. He's the former president and publisher of the Sun Herald, and now he's on the radio. Welcome to Coast View with Ricky Matthews on SuperTalk Mississippi Gulf Coast 103.1.
Welcome back to Coast View. Appreciate you joining us. And if you just missed that conversation I had with John Harrison, the CEO from Hancock Whitney, I would really recommend seeing it if you would just, well, first of all, he's just a smart guy. He's up to speed on what's happening economically. When we got into the discussion about the vaccine, the way he could just riddle off the names of the companies that are involved, you can tell that the people at the highest level of the corporations that are involved in the U.S. are watching the virology, the biology, the virus, the pandemic, and the cures closely, because it will determine, how their companies perform going forward. So it's really interesting to hear John. If you missed it, you can go to SuperTalk Gulf Coast Facebook page and watch it, or you can go to the Mississippi SuperTalk YouTube page and see it as well. So anyway, let's switch gears now. We're going to move to our friend Matt McDonald, who's the executive director of the Mississippi Coast Coliseum and Convention Center. Matt just did an outdoor concert, very innovative approach. We're going to talk about that. But I just want to kind of get an update on what's happening. We've talked a little less than 2 months ago. So I know a lot of things have changed in some ways, and in other ways, not much has changed. So how you doing, Matt?
We're surviving. We're gonna survive, but it's definitely what's changed, Ricky. That I can tell you the most is the fact that the time that we feel that it's going to take to recover from all this keeps getting pushed further back. So yeah, that's the worst change that I've seen.
Let's remind people, though, the Coast Coliseum is a very uniquely formed organization. So it's almost as if, well, it's not as, you are a CEO running your own corporation. It's a public entity, but it's not like, tax dollars are pouring into your organization. No, you've got to make a go of it.
It's a very rare model that exists in the public venue sector throughout not only the United States, maybe throughout the entire world, in the fact that we're set up like our own city. We're like the Vatican is to Rome. No, I'm not the Pope. Don't want to be the Pope, but
Bill Holmes might have been.
Bill might have been, but I'm not. But I have to tell you, it's really meaningful to me as a director to be able to run an operation like this without having to survive by having tax funds. But that's a two-edged sword, because now the money that we that we make off of doing events that keeps our operation going, that money's not coming in. So we're having to do some juggling, and we're certainly having to look at some cutbacks and how to save the cash that we have put in the bank. And we're going to survive it, but we're just going to have to go probably another 12 to 18 months to do so.
What's important about that is that, like a business that is literally going to survive or not survive based on what you do, particularly in this pandemic moment, innovatively, you're left to your own devices. So whereas others may be waiting for tax dollars to save them, you're having to think, just like any other business person would have to think, where's my revenue coming from? How I'm going to keep this staff, paid so that we can be ready to host the next event. One of the things that John talked about, and he mentioned it to you offline, but he did it online with me in that first segment, is that we really now understand. At one point, we shut the economy down. There was a reason for that. We paid dearly for that. Now what we're knowing is that we can be very narrow in how we want to go forward. In other words, essentially where there are people that are going to be rubbing shoulders with one another, like at a football game, any kind of other sports, at the Coliseum, at restaurants, there are certain industries that are taking a bigger hit for the rest of us now. You're taking the hit so that the rest of us can go about our lives and not have to deal with outbreaks and all this. But what you're finding now is a way. Now, certainly, hopefully, there will be some money coming down from Congress to help prop you guys up. But what you're finding is there may be some other approaches that you can take that at least keep some revenue coming in, and that's kind of where your head is these days, isn't it?
It's had to be that way, and we're blessed from the standpoint that we sit on over 60 acres of land. Some of it we can't access because of the railroad track yet, but eventually one day that'll happen when Pops Ferry gets extended. But the land that we sit on allows us to do outdoor events, and we've been doing them for years, whether it's Cruising the Coast or the Crawfish Music Festival or the Summer Fair or other conventions that want to have an outdoor component. The grounds we have are very nice and very unique. They overlook the Mississippi Sound. Where can you go in America and have a venue our size that's front yard looks out over the body of water that we have?
And the live oaks. I mean, my gosh.
Yeah, I wish I had a few more live oaks, but Katrina took care of some of that. But nonetheless, we're utilizing all of the assets that we have, whether it's our outdoor facilities, the sheer size of our indoor arena at almost 11,000 seats. I mean, Ricky, the first event that we really had to get our head wrapped around was doing high school graduations. And there was a lot of meaning there to me personally. I had a daughter that was not able to graduate on time due to a state history exam that kept hanging her up, and finally she passed it and she was able to graduate. But it hurt to not see her graduate with her own class and have to wait a year. And so when Roy Gill from Harrison County Schools called me and said, "Hey, can we talk?" I said, "Sure." And he came down and met, and we walked through it. And I told him, I said, "These are the things I'm concerned about. These are the things that we have to think about before we could even remotely consider doing a graduation." And between the two of us, we sat down and figured that out and made it work, and it became a model. And so subsequently, we took care of the Harrison County Schools, we took care of the Jackson County Schools, and we were able to host Long Beach High School's graduation. And you know what? All the high schools that didn't get to graduate with us, I hate it, and I hope that they'll come back next year and be able to. But the schools that did graduate, they got as close to a normal graduation as anybody did in America.
Mm-hmm. So look, let's do this. As you and I were talking about offline, I have some friends that are in the music industry, and because of the way that album sales work these days, the way that streaming music works these days, their business model has changed dramatically, and concerts are such an important part of the overall business model. What are you hearing from the industry these days about? I mean, how freaking out are they? It's got to be pretty significant.
Well, the first major tour that I have rescheduled from a reschedule is Mercy Me, which is slated to come back in March of 2021. Reba McEntire was originally May of this year, moved to July of this year, now has moved to July of next year. Chris Stapleton has moved from from March of this year to September of this year, now to September of next year. KISS moved from March of this year to October of this year, now to October of next year. So everything is pretty much pushed well into 2021 from a touring standpoint. But there's a difference. There are artists out there that need to work, their crews need to work, they want to work, they love performing to a live audience, and those are the artists that we are starting to identify that, one, will work for less, that understand that our capacities are limited, but we have developed a safe way to do shows outdoors. And I've got a lot of people that were watching what we did. We picked a really good act in the terms of the demographics of the artist, where his crowd would conform to the rules. Some of the artists that are out there, their crowds may not be as easy to educate as others.
Yeah, so the immediate mosh pit or something, whatever the situation might be.
Yeah, there's certain genres that just aren't going to make sense.
Let's take this through. We got maybe a minute or two left in this segment, but the event was recent. Now, some people may have missed it. So what was the event and what did you do?
It was Jamie Johnson, and it was an outdoor show that went off on Saturday night, July the 18th. We manifested our front grounds, and we kind of went off the concept that we did with the Crawfish Festival, but instead of making it a GA where you could bring your lawn chairs and your blankets, we said, no, we're going to set up tables of 8. And we kind of referred to it as our family and friends concert. And the family and friends approach really comes from the fact that, who are you hanging out with? Who are you comfortable being around during this pandemic? It's really your immediate family or some very close friends. And so that is what really kind of stirred my imagination as to how do I put that together to make it work in the concert world to where we can sell enough tickets to make the math work. It's nothing more than really fourth grade math when you get right down to it. And John Hairston could appreciate that, because a lot of business is nothing more than fourth grade math. So once we figured out that we could do enough people, generate enough income to support the fixed cost of doing the show and give the artists a decent enough payday to make it worth their while to come out, then that's what put the wheels in motion.
That's pretty cool. I'm curious about in the weeks leading up to the concert, working with Jamie and his team. Were they sort of part of the innovation here? Did they help lend ideas, and kind of what role did they play?
Well, let me say this. I've been in the industry now for pretty much almost 40 years now, and that was one of the coolest events that I have ever been involved in, because it was a total collaboration between all of us.
This is what I want to do. Let's do this. We're at the end of this segment. I want people to hear about that, because that's the key to success. You got to have an artist that's ready to, roll their sleeves up and innovate with you. And if you have that, it could be the perfect sort of mix that could create success. So we're going to come back with Matt McDonald, the director of the Mississippi Coast Coliseum and Convention Center, after this, and really zero in on his outdoor concert that was a real success. There are probably some things that you would do differently, but we'll get into kind of an analysis of that when we come back from the break.
All right.
Follow SuperTalk Mississippi Gulf Coast 103.1 on Facebook. Facebook.com/SuperTalk MS Coast 103.1.
Get out of the house and over to Big Play today. 2 massive arcades, bowling, go-karts, 2 mini golf courses, a 2-story state-of-the-art laser tag arena, bumper cars, and right now get a $50 game card for only $25. Visit our station's Facebook and print on demand so you can play at Big Play Entertainment Center now. These deals won't last long, so make sure you get your half-off deal. Big Play Entertainment Center, Highway 90, Biloxi. Bowl, play, eat. Go to our station's Facebook to get your half-off deal now.
You could be spreading the coronavirus without realizing you have it, so do your part and stay home. It's important to limit in-person interaction with anyone outside of your immediate household, but phone and video chat are safe ways to connect. It's also important to limit social gatherings. If you need essential items like food and medicine, try using a delivery service. If you must leave your house for essential items, or if you want to take a walk for exercise, make sure to wear a cloth face covering. Stay at least 6 feet away from other people. Try not to touch frequently touched surfaces like light signals, street signs, or benches. And wash your hands with soap and water for at least 20 seconds as often as possible. This advice applies to people of any age, including teens and younger adults. It takes all of us to slow the spread of the coronavirus, so stay home unless absolutely necessary. Visit coronavirus.gov for the latest information.
Hey, I'm Steve Azar, and you never know who or what you'll hear when I spend a Mississippi Minute with my friends. Talking to Paul Thorne, Mississippi true treasure, really incredible recording artist, singer-songwriter, has been doing it a long time, doing it the right way.
It's almost like a Forrest Gump thing because, I was a boxer, / I worked in a furniture factory, / I had a gig 2 nights a week playing my acoustic guitar in a pizza restaurant, / I was in the National Guard, and, all this stuff was going on at the same time. / I had a writing contract with Rick Hall and Fame.
In a Mississippi Minute. Be sure to check out In a Mississippi Minute with me, Steve Azar, right here on SuperTalk Mississippi, the SuperTalk Mississippi app, and now available on iTunes, Google Play, and Stitcher.
SuperTalk. Nobody keeps Mississippi informed like we do. With 12 stations covering all 82 counties. If it happens in your state, we're on top of it. The news, the weather, the sports, and the talk that's important to you. The issues that matter to you, your family, and your bank account. It's all right here. And when you're away from home, depend on the SuperTalk app and supertalk.fm to stay in the know. We're proud to serve our fellow Mississippians. SuperTalk Mississippi. Whether you're a Rebel, a Bulldog, a Golden Eagle, or just a sports fan, SuperTalk Mississippi has got a podcast for you. For you. Sports Talk Mississippi, The Rebel Report, Thunder and Lightning, the SuperTalk Eagle Hour, and The Borky Show are all now available for you. And it's all free. Get them all on demand at supertalk.fm and on your smartphone. Just search for SuperTalk on iTunes, Google Play, or anywhere you listen to podcasts. Talking to the people that help make the coast such a unique place to live. This is Coast View with Ricky Matthews on SuperTalk Mississippi Gulf Coast 103.1.
Welcome back to Coast View. We have Matt McDonald, the Executive Director of the Coast Coliseum and Convention Center, and we're talking about the really innovative concert that he did, outdoor concert on July the 18th with Jamie Johnson. And one of the points that he was making was, and all the time he's been in this industry, this collaboration that occurred around this concert couldn't have been better. Let's talk about why that's important, and let's just go through, let's help kind of paint a picture for people about what it felt like to be at this concert.
Well, when the idea first came up, we got everybody that was that needed to have input on a Zoom call, including the artist. Jamie Johnson participated in the Zoom call. I'll never forget it. He had his hat turned around backwards with that long flowing beard, and I'm going, wow, man, I've never seen you look quite like that. But his key, and this is what we had to always keep in the forefront, was safety. He was not interested in doing a concert, wasn't really interested about how much money he was making. He was really interested more about being able to show people that you can do live entertainment and you can do it safely. So once we developed the plan of how we were going to do this and we laid it all out, then there were a few tweaks that we made through the planning process. In terms of number of tables, how many people at the table, how far apart the tables were, the fact that we would not allow people to come to the stage, there would be no meet and greets. His area had to be completely secured where it was just his people. He didn't want any extraneous people, from stagehands to caterers to anybody in his compound that he would set up on our grounds. And so those were easy for us to be able to do. And it just really was a matter of if the public was interested enough to be able to buy into the show. So what we ultimately did was we came up with a budget. We agreed upon that budget. We agreed upon ticket prices, what the gross potential would be, how we would market it. And instead of making us fork out a large guarantee, he reduced his guarantee to a point that it would work on less than a sellout. And we were able to even go on sale to kind of put our big toe in the water to see what the interest was. And once we did that and we saw that we could sell enough tickets that first weekend that we went on sale, then it was just a matter of executing and fine-tuning the safety aspect, and that's what we did.
So if you see an aerial photograph, these round tables sorted out in a very orderly, almost geometric, layout. You didn't have, waiters would come to your table to serve you drinks. Walk through some of those mechanics.
Well, first thing was we separated the tables where they were 10 feet apart, not 6 feet apart. We only allowed 8, and we made you buy the entire table. In other words, you couldn't buy 2 seats at a table where you would be sitting next to strangers. That's what we did not want to have happen. So that's why we dubbed it the Family and Friends Show. And that was kind of an obstacle at first to overcome, to make people understand that you had to buy a table of 8. But I've done that before in a different genre of music back in the old days with my Southern Soul and Blues shows. That's how they would sell tickets, would be by selling tables. So we took that same concept, educated the public, got them on board, and sold tables of 8. We had a bottle of hand sanitizer at every table. We did face masks at every table that we got Jamie to allow us to use one of his images to where we screen printed the face mask where you had a souvenir Jamie Johnson face mask. Out of all of the things that we did, including lots of signage, yard signs, the size of political yard signs with different slogans about social distancing, washing your hands, keeping a safe distance. We even put rules on the table because we had to number each table, because when you bought a table, you bought it by whatever number that was on the map. So when we numbered the tables, we put rules along with those numbers to where people understood this is what we expect. We don't want you to go from table to table. We want you to wear a mask when you get up to use the restroom, or if you have to go to a concession area. We did have wait staff that took pressure off of those concession stands, and it allowed people that wanted to go to the stands to be able to do so and socially distance in a safe way. We didn't let people come up to the stage area. Now, one thing I did see that really touched my heart, okay, really made the night for me, was a couple of his slow songs. When he started them up, people would stand up at their tables, husband and wife, girlfriend, boyfriend, and dance. And I'm going, wow, never thought I would see people dancing again. And wow. we were able to see that. But in the end, the plan worked. The only thing that I was a little disappointed in, Ricky, and I think that we're seeing it, but hopefully we're getting better, and that's the face mask deal. People don't want to wear a face mask outside. You don't see people wearing face masks very often to the beach. And you don't see them wearing them when they're sitting down to eat in outdoor restaurants. So that was the only thing that was a little disappointing, but I kind of expected it would happen.
Yeah, Dr. Conger says that unless you're going to be in close proximity to someone you don't know, in other words, talking close to them outdoors, that generally you don't need one outside. But that's a hard, because see, here's the thing, you got to go to the bathroom, you got to go to the concession stand. So, you got to, I know that's a tough one, but listen, we could really slice and dice it even more. I just wanted to wet people's whistles with the innovation that's happening at the Coliseum, and the reality that you guys cannot just sit back and wait for some kind of government, bailout, that you're going to do your best to innovate. We'll see more of this in different kinds of ways.
We have an event this weekend. We have an event with mixed martial arts that we're going to do outside that we are very confident is going to work, and we've got more events planned. So if you go to our website, mscoastcoliseum.com, you can see some pictures from the Jamie Johnson Show. You'll see pictures from the fight this weekend, and you'll see our list of activities. It's a little sparse right now, but we know more's coming.
We'll have you back in a couple of weeks, not only to talk about how the fight went, but to also talk about other things that are coming up. So anyway, it's been a pleasure. Matt, thank you so much for your friendship, but really thanks for your leadership. We needed that here in coastal Mississippi, and you're doing that so well. So we'll talk to you soon.
Thank you, Ricky.
This has been Mac McDonald from the Coast Coliseum and Convention Center. We'll see you later. Have a great day.
You can also listen live to SuperTalk Mississippi Gulf Coast 103.1 on your Amazon Alexa devices. Once you've enabled the skill, just say, Alexa, open SuperTalk Mississippi Gulf Coast.